Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, and it's time for today's True Crime Grapevines gas headlines. So, what's the haps on the True Crimes interwebs? I'm here to tell you. If you're new here and you found me by accident, hi. I give a quick update along with some traffic, I guess. Uh, I give a quick little rundown about what's happened in the last 24 hours or so. Now it's a Monday, so what's happened over the weekend. Um, I go live Monday through Friday, and I'll try to make some uploads. I started doing lives because we got two new crime kitties in my house, and they're in there. I'm out on the back porch doing a porch live because things are a little crazy in my house. So, anyways, pour a drink. Tonight I've got some hot tea. We're going to spill some on what's been going on. And tonight we've got three main stories. One is happy ending. How often do we get those? Not much. That's the story that took precedence since the last time I came live. It hit stories. Right before I went live on Friday, I read about this story of Charlotte Cena from New York. It was a girl who had been missing since 6:15, or sorry, that happened Saturday. So no, it didn't happen before I went live. It happened on Saturday, but all Saturday, all Sunday, and then this morning. At first you're thinking sometimes when kids go missing, they find them, especially in a wooded area. But this little girl, Charlotte, she was 9 years old. She was doing one last little loop in a camping area on a paved path that no one, she couldn't really get off and get lost, and it didn't pass cars. So it was a little concerning when she didn't come back. And then they went and looked and they found her bike, but not her. And when she wasn't found within, a few hours, well, her mom called right away, as one would. Anyway, that whole weekend, that's all anybody's been talking about, because as the hours passed, it became more and more clear. Someone abducted this child. And as you guys know, if you're following true crime, not good things happen. So that's a good happy ending. Then we have a little, we have an update on the Crystal Rogers case, which the update happened, I believe, last Wednesday. An arrest. So that's from a 2015 case. So that's pretty amazing. It just seems like sometimes justice takes some while, and we have a little more supposition, allegations, and shade, and some good true crime theories happening on the interwebs that I'd like to share with you about the Susan Morphew case. So if you've got about 30 minutes, stick around. You can be doing laundry. You can be walking your dog, driving somewhere, and I'll just babble at you for a little bit. All right. So this Charlotte Cena, or Senna, I believe it is a 9-year-old blonde child. She went camping with her family. I believe they went there on Friday. They were there. They were spending the weekend there. The state park was Morrow Lake State Park in Saratoga County, which is north of Albany, like right almost in the middle of New York State. And if you know anything about New York State, that's just out of the mountains, and it's not super rural, but I mean, almost all of New York is very up and down, it's just very beautiful. Even near cities, there's just trees everywhere. There's some hills, mountains, lots of lakes. It's just terrific. But thinking of a child lost in it is crazy. So, as I said, she went for a bike ride. She and her cousins, I believe, had been riding their bikes around this looped path inside the park near the camping sites, and it was a closed loop. So they couldn't really get lost or go somewhere, or somebody couldn't enter. It wasn't like it was connected to the larger path that went around the whole entire lake. Really tiny little loop. And for a 9-year-old, pretty reasonable to let them go while it was still daylight. And she had said she wanted to go around one more time by herself. Now, we don't know if somebody had offered her something, why she wanted to go by herself, or if she really just wanted to be independent. It could have been, we'll find out more, obviously, now that she's been found. So this does have a happy ending. But her parents, I can't even imagine the terror when she didn't return within 15 minutes. This was a very small loop. I mean, it should have been 5 minutes. So they went looking and they found that her bike had been thrown off the path. Within 15 minutes of looking, they saw her bike had been thrown off the path. And immediately they dialed 911. Police came. They couldn't find anything else. Now, it was reported like maybe they found she was wearing Crocs. Maybe they found a Croc. That was never confirmed. All we knew was that her bike was there. She was not. And she had been wearing a gray helmet, black Crocs, pants, and a Pokemon tie-dyed shirt. And then everybody was looking. They cleared out the park yesterday. They cleared out the airspace around the park. The really scary thing was that there was an old highway that ran really close to that side of the park. And for a short space right around where those campsites were, you could, like, there was like 40 yards where you could see into the park area where that little path ran, the loop. And so somewhere on that old road, I forget what the name was, but people were concerned that somebody had stopped and took a crime of opportunity, saw her, grabbed her, snatched her somehow, and made off right on that highway. And then there was a larger highway, I think it was 187, very close by. So she was found, I think it was like half an hour south. They were meeting at the Saratoga, what was it? Performing Arts Center, to reunite with their family, or they hadn't had a press conference yet by the time I'm going live. So it's 8. I started getting ready around 8 o'clock. So it had just been announced that she was found safe, I think around 7:30, 7 o'clock. So, and that there has been a suspect caught. So we will hear more. Everybody's trying to the family obviously is so joyful. If you go onto Twitter or X, as it's whatever, you can see pictures of her family cheering when they heard, and they're thanking people for helping find her. And I mean, it's been about 2 days, 48 hours, almost exactly. But I can't imagine. Hopefully, the person didn't do anything too horrific to her because of all the publicity. So everybody who watched, thank you. Everybody who shared the information. That's the kind of thing that freaks out a predator, because it blows up so quickly that they can't do anything with the child. The picture is everywhere, plastered, and that's great. So we'll find out what happened. I'm hoping nothing too horrific, but she is alive. She is safe, and she is with her family. So that is just unbelievable. I'm sure we'll hear in the morning, maybe, if we don't hear tonight. So Charlotte Senna is safe. All right. Somebody who is not safe, unfortunately, Crystal Rogers. I remember seeing Crystal Rogers' face everywhere, and her story talked about, because it was sort of a mystery about where this mom, sounds a little bit like Rachel Morin, right? A mom of 5 goes missing, but she went missing on July 3rd, 2015. And I didn't look up his exact excuse story. Like, he probably said she just ran away, but she was on this farm of her boyfriend at the time, and also father of her youngest child, Brooks. I think you say it Houck, Houck. Now, when I first saw the update on this, I thought it said that Crystal Rogers, suspected unaliver, had been found. It was arrested on a traffic charge. And I wasn't sure that was enough of an update, because it's great when they can arrest. I thought he was arrested for something else. Now, I don't know if he was first arrested on a traffic charge, and then they um, did more of it once they, if that was like not a ruse, but, to stop him. But anyways, he has been arrested. He was the last person to see her. The big thing was this was in Kentucky, and his family, I guess, is politically connected, and it seemed like he couldn't get in trouble, even though he was the last person with her. She never contacted anybody again. Everybody said she would never leave her children. Her mother tried to get visitation rights to see the baby that she had with him, who was, I believe, 2 at the time of her demise in 2015. And I believe for a couple of years, she was allowed to see the baby every other weekend. And then this guy took the mom back to court, and it was overturned, and she didn't have any visitation rights. Now she's trying to get rights again to visit with that child, because that child is the only connection she has to her daughter from that father. So, and it didn't say if she was visiting or had custody of the other 4 children or where they might be. But that's horrible when a mother loses her daughter and then also loses the child that's connected, especially when you think the person, and in this case, he was arrested for the unaliving of Crystal Rogers. So October 5th, so today is the 2nd, we are going to see him in court. There's going to be a hearing. So we will look forward to seeing what happened. And if you've followed that case, feel free to put something in the comments. I would love to hear if you were following that case. I don't know why I wasn't, except for hearing it once in a while, but there was nothing for a long time. And yeah, it's great that he's now been arrested, and I guess we'll hear the rest. I think I have to look more into that. I will. All right. So here's the third update, is something I know a lot about because this happened during 2020. At the height of COVID, when we were all at home, including Suzanne Morphew at home the day before Mother's Day. Now, she was reported missing on Mother's Day. She was reported by a neighbor because her husband had called the neighbor to say, hey, can you check on Suzanne? She's not answering. Then, will you look for her bike? Because the neighbor said, well, her car is there, but she's not answering the door. Oh, will you look for a bike? This bike was the big, the bike. Well, the bike was found off a road, and the husband, Barry Morphew, said, oh, well, she was a mountain biker. But the thing was, as in the story that was told tonight, the little girl was missing. Her bike was found strewn, but she was missing. Now, when someone grabs somebody off a bike, yeah, they're going to leave the bike behind, but they're going to take the person. Now, if the person's biking, they got strapped on their helmet, right? The helmet would be with them, like it was with the little girl, Charlotte. But with Suzanne, her bike was found in one place, and then like a mile up the road, they later found her helmet. And neither one of them looked like they'd been in any sort of fight, like crash, fight with Barry's thought maybe a mountain. Was it a mountain lion that got her? There were no scratches, no blood. It looked like they just were tossed in that area. And there was all other sketchy things. But when people go to talk about this case, now Suzanne Morphew's remains were found last 2 weeks ago Friday, but last Wednesday it was identified publicly, and the true crime community heard that it was Suzanne Morphew. Since that time, at first, this YouTuber named, I think his name is Gray Hughes, and he's very confident, shall I say. And he's sometimes rude to people who ask questions. He does these really long lives, but I will tell you, he's very technically proficient, and he's bright. He was watching the first news report after Suzanne had been reported. Maybe they just said remains had been found when they were looking for Edna Quintana. Quintana, which was the woman who had been missing from Moffat, Colorado, around that area in Sasquatch. Is that right? Sasquatch County. What he did was he looked at this reporter. You could see crime tape on this road. We knew it was off route near Moffat and near route probably 117 or 17, Colorado 17. And he matched up like the background on Google Maps to the background in the mountains, exactly their shape, to this reporter, and that there was a dead end sign, that there was a stop sign, that he looked at different features, and he said it was on County Road R. Now, at mile marker 103. And some had said it was northwest of Moffat, some said southwest, but I think the police did say southwest. Let me just tell you guys, this area later, there were 30 or so investigators on the road, and you could see it was that road. So Gray Hughes was correct. You could see about, I'd say, 500 feet, maybe a half of a football field into this County Road R off of 17, and then over about 300 feet. They were in the brush. Now, the brush came up to, it would be almost my knees. So past the ankles of a grown man, like if you waded into a pool, like the low end of a pool, like about there, but it was brush. So actually, it's kind of genius that if you wanted to bury somebody, you would pick a road that was south of the only city out there, because if it was before that, you'd have more chance of people leaving Moffat, because the only place they would probably, there was only 100 and less than 200 people living there, but they would go towards Poncha Springs or Colorado Springs. I mean, they would go up north, would be the way they'd have to leave town. So if you wanted to go and bury somebody, that would be more like, if you were north of the town, more likely people would pass you. So if you went south of that town, nobody's there. Then you also pick a dead end road. Who's going down that little path in the middle of nowhere? And then you go off into the brush. Pretty much great dumping ground. Now, why would Barry take Suzanne, or whoever took Suzanne, allegedly? If it wasn't Barry, maybe it wasn't, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Why would they go there if they took her from her house? Well, if you look at the temperatures of that day and night in early May and late April, up in Salida, you're up in the Rocky Mountains, and it still is in the 30s at night, many nights. So frozen ground. If you come out of the mountains and you go south and you go towards the Great Sand Dunes Park, which is just to the east of Moffat, guess what? Sandy soil, and you drop elevation about 3,000 feet. Now, it's still not warm. I mean, it still would be hard to dig, and the soil seems very compact, but it's sandy, and you're not in the mountains. So if you were desperate to bury somebody, that's a way better bet, this remote spot. And if you look on Google Maps also, and I think it's about at County Road R, where it intersects with it's Colorado Route 17. It looks like it may be in this Baca National Wildlife Refuge. So the refuge is south and a little bit east of Moffat, but it jogs in and out the lines of it across US 17, and it looks like it might be at that R, County Road R. So you have a dead end road with a bunch of brush that covers up the ground. So it would be hard to see that the ground was disturbed, like with satellite imaging that's taken all the time. it would disrupt that because there's all these little brush things, and it's a dead end road. So you're not going to have, if you're burying somebody, maybe you take a couple shovels with you that you have that you later clean with bleach. Maybe. Now, some people have been saying, well, if somebody grabbed her on her, some sex offender, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we know in her car there were epithelial cells. Now, this always makes people angry, but in the Brian Kohlberger case, they only found epithelial cells. That's from your skin. And that's the kind that can be transferred. So I can touch my computer, then my kids can come in, they can touch my computer, then my kids can take my DNA, go out into the world where I have never been and go someplace and do something, and then leave my cells. That's how that happens. So if you were paying attention to the DNA stuff in the Barry Morphew preliminary trial, they found in Suzanne's car different samples that were consistent with being related to this like unknown sex offender. Remember Rachel Morin? We found out that somebody that had hurt her committed a crime because they had a very close direct match. This was an epithelial match. It wasn't a match. And it wasn't even close. It was like it was somebody related to this unknown sex offender from Arizona and Chicago. So it was a relative of that person. So there was no sex offender that touched anything in Suzanne's car. Now, in Suzanne's car, they found her sunglasses, her purse, and her camelback thing that she took when she rode. Every time she rode, she would wear her helmet, right? Her bike clothes and her sunglasses and her camelback drinks, like water supply. So if she really did go for that ride, number one, and somebody grabbed her, they probably would have grabbed her with her helmet and not thrown her helmet. And if so, they probably would have ripped it off her, right? But if she really would have gone riding, she would have had her sunglasses and her phone with her and her saddleback bag that she always had each time. But more importantly than that, when people talk about when Suzanne went missing, Suzanne took a selfie on her phone at home at 2:30 something in Saturday afternoon, Saturday before Mother's Day. After that, her phone was not used for any use like Google searches. Any app wasn't opened. No phone calls were made. No text messages were made. No more pictures. No checking weather apps. Nothing. So it is not usual. The last thing was Barry said he was coming home. Where are you? Where are you? She's taking a picture of a selfie to her boyfriend. Her boyfriend's texting her back and she's not answering. And then that's it. So it is hard for me to believe that whatever happened to her didn't happen Saturday. Because a woman whose husband is leaving in the morning, and, Barry said they had a lovely romantic steak dinner. In fact, it was so romantic, they ate off one plate. Yeah, she seemed real romantic when she was sending a selfie in a bikini to her boyfriend. Of course, Barry didn't know that the police knew about that. But one plate was used to eat that night. Nothing on her phone. The last time her phone pinged, so it was opened, or at least it was powered on at one point, was at 4:30 a.m. That was the last time it pinged. Now, somebody on Twitter also, or X, whatever it is, looked up exhibits from Barry's defense exhibits that were shown during the preliminary. And because he was saying he wasn't in, where was he trying to prove he wasn't? Anyways, but it did show that he went to this area where there was a dirt farm that was down near Moffat. So apparently the telematics tend to give some information that he at least had business in the area, so that he was aware of that area. But remember, he put his phone, and then the truck telematics didn't work. Something was weird in the middle of the night until all of a sudden at, I believe it was at 5 a.m., things picked back up. So we're going to have to pay more attention to the timing of everything. But I will tell you, as we learned in the Murdoch case, when someone is active on their phone and they all of a sudden aren't active, and then we know that they were unalived, that's how we can pinpoint time of death. And so the only person who was with Suzanne Morphew between 2:30 on Saturday, 2:30 afternoon, until Sunday morning at 5, the only person admittedly, self-admittedly, who was with her the whole time was Barry Morphew, her husband. So do I believe she went on a bike ride? No, because she didn't even use her phone. She didn't take her supplies with her. The person who introduced the idea of, oh my God, she was on a bike ride and must have gotten snatched by a mountain lion or abducted, was the person who put that into somebody's head, was the person who was with her from the time her phone stopped being used until the very last time it pinged. What do you think? All right. So, hey, you could like and subscribe or not. It would help, but you don't have to. The last thing I wanted to discuss really quick, I'm almost up to my 30-minute deadline, is if you were paying attention to, there was a movie about child, let's just say, like, how cars get stuck in traffic. Trying to be YouTube friendly here. It was, what was that called? Anyways, Tim Ballard was the person who was involved in helping to get this movie running. He was supposed to be the person it was about. Tim Ballard was just excommunicated from the Mormon Church for using one of the prophet Russell's names and insinuating that the church was like funding it was called OUR, which stood for, I don't know. He was running a paramilitary group, meaning not part of the real military. And in fact, it came out that all of his insights as to where to go find children that were, let's just say, playing in traffic, that they came from a psychic, somebody who was having revelations, like from Nephi. Are we seeing a pattern here? So, and then he also insinuated that he needed to his wife was busy raising their kids, so he needed to take other women to be a ruse for a spouse when they went on these organizational trips to go save children, which involved them sleeping in the same bed with him and showering with him, because they had to really seem like wives, because then the people who have to do with taking care of traffic wouldn't think that, if he wouldn't partake in something they offered, well, it's because he had his wife with him, so he couldn't. Which other people have said that really doesn't make a lot of sense. And he really didn't seem to be saving a bunch of kids. And so that whole movie about, like, that was supposed to glorify these people saving children from this like outside group. Again, it all seems to be more related to him having an excuse to do inappropriate things with other women, and then getting the finance and seemingly saying the church approved of him and what he was doing, and he had ins with the church people, and so the church people are now out. So just like with Jody, Ruby Franke and Jody Hillebrand, the church is speaking up and disassociating themselves from these cray-cray people, because they had enough with Lori Vallow. Remember, she tried to call the main legal person. I think she did, from the mental hospital. Like, I don't know how that happened, but it seems like the Mormon Church is starting to take a more strong line of no, I don't know them. Sorry, who this? New phone. Who's this? Anyways, so it's kind of interesting that movie, that this guy, this Tim Ballard started out this year on such a high with this movie coming out, and he really felt like he had an in with these, at least to him, with church leaders. And he's ending now this year being excommunicated from that very church for supposedly having revelations about how to save kids with psychics. So it really does seem like the mainstream Latter-day Saints are starting to, you know, say no, thank you. I wonder what they're going to say about Jody Hillebrand. That will be interesting. All right. So, like and subscribe. Anyways, I will be here tomorrow, Tuesday. Stay safe. Bye.